deal was that when I came back in 78, 79, I had the ability to propose a class, which first of all was very exciting to me to sort of be able to, you know, do this right away. And the class that I proposed at that point was Nazi Mind. And so the class was kind of a hybrid of history and psych, hence not, Nazi Germany, but Nazi Mind, with the idea of sort of looking at contextually what gave rise to the mindset that allowed certain things to occur. I would say teaching it was not the biggest challenge. Finding resources for research was extraordinarily difficult. In years 2, 3, I had tremendous support to actually get original Nuremberg trial transcripts and make them available to students, but we had to go outside the school to get them. So it would often take 3, 4 hours for them to take the documents from the archives where they were kept, bring the books upstairs, make them accessible to us. So half of the time that was spent wasn't spent actually looking at the research. It's getting your hands on the materials themselves. The person who ran Ganella Bakery in Chicago actually donated a set that had been given to him that had been passed on via one of the Congress people that had had a set. So then, that was the first real game changer because students could use their time not to go down to one of only 2 places that at the time made those sets available, but they could then spend the time really digging in here. But there's still, of course, no online, no internet access, nothing of that sort. Right. So it was still a very time-consuming process that I don't think I would ever have asked students really to engage in. What was amazing to me, the time changer, was that they wanted to. So they started to dig in and spend hours and hours and not protest the spending hours and hours. Technology has been a dramatic, I think, game changer in what's available, how quickly it's available. And therefore, of course, it's transportable too. You can do it wherever you are. You can be wherever you are and still, work on this. Whereas students at the beginning, that was not an option. It's absolutely not an option. But what changed was less how the class was taught up to that point. What changed was the degree to which students really could go in depth, the degree to which we could ask for material evidence to be presented. So what you could ask students to do, what you could ask them to process, that changed tremendously because we can expect things now that before would just have been unreasonable to demand. Shifting venue was tremendously important from the standpoint of making it feel less like it was just a class and in a classroom. Sure. And moving it into a setting that I think almost automatically kicked up the level of what students were able to do. And it started actually with a student whose father was a judge at the Daly Center, and he offered us his courtroom. So we had, I think, the privilege of being the only high school able to do that. The first time that I went, it was actually really interesting to me because I had imagined, as did virtually every student that had looked at images and had participated in the simulation, we thought of the courtroom there as much larger. You walk into that courtroom and it literally looks like it's about identical in footprint to our ceremonial courtroom at the Daly Center. Wow. And it's amazing because that's not what you would expect. And of course, then for kids to sit in the places where people had sat to, kind of try out. And we actually had one of our judges do a portion of her speech, so that we were able to record what she did when she did it here and what she did when she was sitting in the Nuremberg courtroom as the Chief Justice. Wow. Which was kind of cool. For many of them, it's a really cool experience to be in the actual setting, right? Because I think just like taking it out of a classroom and into a courtroom here, albeit not the original courtroom, there's a shift in how you think about yourself and in acting in that space, right? So being in the real space, I think is a pretty special experience. There's something that it was enormously impressive just about the person. Um, and so we met, my colleague and I, Dick Dolezal, and I went to the airport to pick Elie Wiesel up. And we got into the worst traffic jam from the airport here. But what was so incredible about it is it gave us an almost 2-hour period, literally able to talk with Elie Wiesel. So we had this, incredible personal access. And he's one of the most, I think, dynamic, but very authentic, very real, no pretense whatsoever individuals that you could ever meet. But his focus, despite all the things that he had experienced as a survivor, was always on the upside, that which was possible despite evil in the world, that which was possible despite ongoing genocides. And so it was very remarkable to, I think, be able to hear and access somebody whose lived experience was as horrifying as it was, but whose takeaway was clearly kind of uplifting. What's interesting to me now is I'm seeing the children of students I taught in the 80s in the courtroom, their parents there, sometimes their grandparents there, who came to see the original trial. But I think in general, there's probably more continuity in terms of how students invest. And that's been a big surprise to me because honestly, I never imagined it as something more than initially actually a one-time experiment in, a couple of elective classes. As an elective class, students don't have to take that particular class at all. So having enough kids year after year to actually make this happen, I think is pretty amazing.